All right, moving on. American President Donald Trump has issued a veiled warning to NATO, raising fresh questions about the alliance's limits. His stated interest in acquiring Greenland has put the spotlight on NATO's core principle of collective defense. And now the situation seems as if any move by United States to seize Greenland would directly test the alliance's credibility. Over the past year, Donald Trump has pressured NATO allies through threats and demands for change. His comments suggesting control of Greenland, even by force, have triggered alarm across Europe, with fears the move could fracture the transatlantic alliance. NATO allies agree that Greenland, a self-governing territory, has the right to decide its own future. Greenland's Prime Minister says the territory would choose to remain with Denmark rather than join the United States.
We are now facing a geopolitical crisis, and if we have to choose between the United States and Denmark here and now, we choose Denmark.
The comments came as American Vice President J.D. Vance and Secretary of State Marco Rubio met with Danish and Greenlandic foreign ministers at the White House. The sides agreed to form a committee to explore whether progress is possible, saying talks should continue face to face. After the meeting, the Danish Foreign Minister, Lars Løkke Rasmussen, said that a frank but also a constructive discussion took place with Rubio and Vance, but that a fundamental disagreement still persists. And soon after this meeting, Copenhagen announced that it is increasing its military presence in Greenland in coordination with allies. Denmark, which is responsible for Greenland's defense, warned that an attack would effectively end NATO.
From today and in the coming period, there will be an increased military presence in and around Greenland of aircraft, ships, and soldiers, including from other NATO allies. Security in the Arctic is of crucial importance for both the Kingdom of Denmark and NATO as a whole.
Europeans have sent its troops to Greenland. Among them, 15 soldiers are from France and one British officer who is headed to the Danish territory. This hastily convened military deployment comes right ahead of a planned larger exercise called Operation Arctic Endurance. This drill will involve soldiers, naval vessels and aircraft from Denmark and small numbers of unarmed or lightly armed personnel from Germany, France, Norway and Sweden. The dispute over the Greenland area comes at a sensitive moment for NATO. European members are stretched by support for Ukraine. And during this critical time, the rising divisions within the NATO is quite evident. Poland has now said that it will not deploy troops.
Today isn't really the time or place for a detailed analysis of the geopolitical and military consequences of a potential armed intervention by the United States in Greenland. It would be a disaster in a political sense, and from our point of view, I mean a conflict or an attempt to take over the territory of a country that is a NATO member by another NATO member state, and what's more, it's the United States. Well, that would be the end of the world as we know it, which has guaranteed our security for decades.
NATO allies often send troops to train in each other's countries. The American sanctions stations about 150 troops at Pituffik Space Base in northwestern Greenland. Allies, including the US, have pushed for years to increase joint exercises in the Arctic Circle. Our correspondent Susan Tehrani is joining us live on the broadcast from New York. Susan, this seems to be quite a challenging time for NATO, considering the fact that Donald Trump is not withdrawing his threats to Greenland. And the kind of unity that we've seen as far as military exercises and convergence is concerned on part of NATO reflects that, if not a direct confrontation, they are sending out signals to Donald Trump that, look, we are ready if you strike Greenland.
Yeah, the language is very triggering for NATO indeed, and puts NATO in a peculiar situation, considering the fact that what will it do? Aid another NATO member state to ultimately take over another NATO member state. And this really has raised concerns about the alliance's future and fractures within the alliance. Nonetheless, it appears that despite the fact that there is daylight between the Danish, the Greenlandic, and the US regarding the future of Greenland, they've decided to set up this strategic consortium amongst themselves where representatives from each country are going to be talking regarding security and the future of Greenland. So at least the dialogue is continuing. On the other hand, I think it was very interesting to note that a congressional delegation, which is bipartisan, is going to be heading to Greenland on Friday and Saturday, is sort of expressing unity with the people of Greenland and, trying to diffuse what the Trump administration at least says that it plans to do. I think that'll be very interesting to watch because that goes back to domestic politics here in the United States as well.
That's right. Susan, thanks very much for joining us at the moment and getting us the latest. We'll keep getting back to you as far as Donald Trump's statements on Greenland are concerned.